during the time of apartheid, farm workers didn't have rights. In a political way, we as farm workers never had the opportunity to vote during elections. When our former President Mandela was released from prison, it was the first time, 1994, that we as farm workers got the rights. And it was the first time in history that we as farm workers had the opportunity to go to elections and vote for the political party of our choice. So the conditions on farms were very bad during the apartheid time. And also with the tot system, people were given a tot of wine instead of increasing their salaries. And people earn low salaries during the time of the apartheid. And that was not good memories. I remember when I was a child, there was also the white people also have to buy some stuff separate, in a separate queue. We as black and colored people always have to buy some stuff over the counter. When it comes to beaches, for us to swim, colored people and black people swam separately as the white people. And also to use a toilet. We as black and colored people always had to use toilets separately. There were always signs that says whites only. So that was not good times for us as farm workers. There's no good memories in that time of apartheid.
You see, the situation on the farms is appalling. There was, we have warned from the start that there will be a rebellion, there will be an uprising if the situation on the farms are not changing. You must know farm workers are dependent on transport from the farmer. His entire livelihood depend on the farmers. When the farmers are the farm worker are sick, he must be going and beg the farmer for transport. The people standing along the road must hike. Sometimes children are dying. The houses is in appalling conditions. Houses falling apart. Workers is not allowed to join the union. As soon as workers joining the union, the farmers intimidate them. The farmers evict them. The farmers even sometimes physically assault them. And that is the situation that give rise to the Durance rebellion. See, that was not a normal labor issue in the Durance. That was an uprising. Workers rise up against the feudal system that is still existing on the farms after 18 years, 19 years. And the system still persists, exists on the farmers. That's why workers said, we are sick and tired, enough is enough. That is why you see the sporadic fire, the violence on the farm that spread across to 16 other towns, and lastly expand to about 30 district municipalities. That was a spontaneous event that workers expressed anger and frustration because why workers is not being heard by anybody. That is why you see the 4th of November's incident that that shocked the world and so on. So that is the conditions. That is against. There's no living wage. Workers don't have houses. Workers don't have nothing. Let's give rise to the uprising in the Durance in South Africa context.
On many farms, we as farm workers live in poor conditions, like housing. Housing contracts remains in the name of men. And even though we have smart labor laws in South Africa, smart labor legislations, and also in terms of housing, the sectorial determination speaks about housing, that the housing has to be a standard condition before they can deduct 10% for housing for house rent. But on some farms, people live in poor conditions in terms of housing, with no toilets, no electricity. People have to walk far distances even to get some wood to make fire, or even walk far distances to get some fresh water.
Nosotros estamos luchando por mejores condiciones de salud en los puestos de trabajo, mejores condiciones salariales, y eso queremos verlo reflejado un año que viene muy cargado de movilizaciones, pero también muy cargado de desafíos que están a las puertas. Es un año eleccionario en nuestro país y creo que los ciudadanos y ciudadanas de nuestro país tenemos que estar atentos de no estar entregando nuestra herramienta, que es una firma, un voto, a gente que no se la juega por cambiar definitivamente el derecho tan básico y tan sagrado del ser humano, que es cuando vendimos nuestra fuerza de trabajo, que es nuestra única arma de lucha que tenemos, no sea correspondido con salarios dignos. Y eso creo que es lo más importante, porque una familia o un trabajador, una trabajadora con un sueldo digno, es posible que solucione el problema de la vivienda, es posible que solucione el problema de la educación, el problema de la salud, que son las cuestiones mínimas y básicas de las familias de cualquier lugar.
You see, the farm workers, that was 3 months of collective action, from about farm workers, and there was organizations like your small scale farmers, your food sovereign campaigns, civil society. That was a combined struggle. There was 3 months of hard battling to move the farmers from 69 rands per week to 105 rands. It's not what workers want, but it's at least a step in the right direction. It's much better compared with what workers earning before this uprising started. In the past, workers are just getting 12 rands and 40 rands. This time, workers getting 52%. So the collective strength and unity forced the government. We moved the government. We moved the commercial farmers to give workers a 52% increase. Okay. But now this increase is under attack. Before, you can see there is this increase is under cease. The farmers, since this, the promulgation of this 105 rands, and before the implementation of the 105 rand, the farmers create damages, intimidate workers, dismissing workers. In our union, there's 48 workers who are being dismissed. There was more than 500 workers who signing final written warnings. There is the farmers force people to signing contracts, so to give them exemption, so that farmers don't have to pay this farmer. So there is an attack on the workers. There is huge dismissals, retrenchments, and resignations from the farm workers.
There's still some of our farm workers who are in jail because of the strikes. Still farm workers who were dismissed because of their involvement with the farm strikes. Some of our farm workers still had to face discipline hearings because of their involvement in the strikes. And me myself had to face a discipline hearing because of my involvement in the whole process of the farm worker strikes, because I'm one of the chief negotiators on the labor unit, looking at a better negotiation and better conditions for our farm workers. So I was intimidated and forced to face a discipline hearing, but unfortunately suddenly when my son died, the same Monday when I had to face this disciplinary hearing, the case was withdrawn against me.
Decía, nunca nos imaginamos la dimensión que esto iba a tener, que este seminario tenía. Cuando nos encontramos acá y nos encontramos con 3 casi continentes, Sudamérica, Sudáfrica, Europa, a conversar y a analizar los problemas de las trabajadoras, de los trabajadores del campo, los que hacen posible que nuestros países estén en las mesas europeas, estadounidenses, japonesas, en fin, en el mundo entero. Sin preocuparse esas personas que para llegar con esos productos al extranjero tiene manos o tiene rostros de mujeres y hombres que viven salarios miserables, que viven en condiciones, trabajan a destajo. Aquí en el seminario, al transcurrir los días, cada día nos fuimos dando cuenta de la importancia que esta discusión tenía. Poder tener una mirada, una coordinación a través de estos 3 continentes, que podamos tener una voz fuerte para decirle a las transnacionales que nuestro trabajo, que tiene costos tan altos y están tan ocultos, que debiera tener una recompensación. Y tiene que ver con un salario digno, con un salario justo y que contemple todas las condiciones sociales para vivir decentemente una familia. No es posible que solamente esta ganancia tan grande la lleven solamente las empresas, y principalmente empresas transnacionales, que ni siquiera son del país. Entonces, desde ahí que nosotros como dirigentes y profesionales que discutimos en estos días, nos paramos para decir basta.
For us as farm workers, I think this conference was a good start to understand more and more about the code, and also it was good for us as farm workers to did an input and how about our conditions, the conditions that we as farm workers live and work in, especially to those farms who export to Systembolaget.
Nunca imaginamos que nuestras voces iban a ser tan importantes en este continente. Cuando desde los compañeros argentinos, desde Anamuri, Chile, ponemos el tema de soberanía alimentaria como una forma de vida, como una forma de calidad de vida, de mejorar nuestras vidas a partir de lo que significa nuestra producción familiar, campesina, nuestros mercados locales, nuestros intercambios de productos, a partir de ahí, de esa construcción tan simple, tan milenaria, porque es a través del conocimiento traspasado de las abuelas, de los abuelos, a nosotras, las mujeres que vamos proyectando la organización en el tiempo. Ese conocimiento ancestral de campesinas, indígenas, es muy importante ponerlo hoy día al servicio de la soberanía alimentaria que tiene que ver con los alimentos para una sociedad en su conjunto. Ese tema para nosotros es tremendamente relevante cuando encontramos aquí luces, compañeros que están intentando de poner como proyecto de vida en Sudáfrica el proyecto de soberanía alimentaria. Eso es tremendamente relevante para nosotros, miembros de la CLOC y Vía Campesina, de la Coordinadora Latinoamericana de Organizaciones del Campo y de la Vía Campesina. Y eso ha sido para nosotros muy gratificante, recorrer el campo, recorrer las haciendas donde están las trabajadoras, los trabajadores, pero también recorrer las experiencias que hoy día compañeros y compañeras que están en este proyecto de soberanía alimentaria están implementando a partir desde las autonomías de la propia gente, desde la miseria, desde la nada que tiene la gente, están proyectando la soberanía alimentaria. Creo que ese hallazgo que nosotros encontramos junto a los compañeros de Argentina ha sido pero tremendamente importante. Y por último decir que nos llevamos un tremendo compromiso. Es tan grande el compromiso que llevamos porque es un desafío de poder tener esta coordinación a pesar de los continentes, a pesar de las distancias, que no sea el idioma, que no sean las distancias que nos limiten para tener una coordinación, que podamos mañana sostener un proyecto, un reglamento de responsabilidad, que de verdad contemple todo lo que los seres humanos, una familia que trabaja las 12 horas que hoy día obligan las leyes. Es muy similar la ley de Sudáfrica a la de Chile en términos de las horas: 8 horas de trabajo, 2 horas extraordinarias, 1 hora para la alimentación. Creo que es muy similar y por lo tanto para una persona que entrega todo ese tiempo a una empresa tiene que contemplarse derecho al descanso, derecho a dormir, derecho a vacacionar, derecho a recreación, que son las mínimas condiciones que nosotros los seres humanos necesitamos. No es posible que solamente la gente que sustenta el poder del dinero sea la única que pueda disfrutar de este mar, de esta soberanía, de esta medio ambiente tan importante. Creo que somos todos los seres humanos que tenemos ese derecho a disfrutarlo, y por eso es que clamamos por nuestras trabajadoras, por nuestros compañeros trabajadores, que esto en algún momento cambie.
And that is why we said the call is to our brothers and sisters in southern Americans to support, to come out in solidarity with our farm workers in South Africa, to take a stand, to say now we will even call on our unions in the South American, or what you call Latin American, to even go on a one-day strike, even go on a one-day strike in solidarity with the farm workers in South Africa. That is, you see, this event is historical. It is the first time in the existence of South Africa that the farm workers rise up, and we have to inspire our workers to take this battle further. You see, a victory for the farm workers is a victory for our humanity, and it's a victory for South Africa, and it's a victory for the world if we maintain, if we can maintain our job. Now we face our biggest challenge is job losses. So that is our big challenge. So we call on the food value chain. We call on the food value chain to come out in solidarity, to telling the South African government that the South African government must intervene and stop the farmers. If South African government are not intervening, we call on the unions and we call on the workers and all the civil society in Latin America to go on a one-day strike in solidarity with the South African poor, to come out in solidarity with the South African poor. And that is the call that we're making to our brothers and sisters in Latin America.
My message to every farm worker is to get involved in trade unions, stand up for your rights, join hands together and fight for your rights. And my message out there to the people overseas who buy South African wine: when you buy this wine on the shelves, when you drink that wine, please consider it. How is the conditions of the farm workers, the conditions that farm workers live and work under? How is the really conditions behind the label? What is the situations that farm workers live under? Oppression with dismissals, So if you drink that wine, please drink it with a conscious what the pressure and oppression that farm workers have to deal with and face with every day.